Well, good evening, folks. Welcome to the live broadcast of the Church Safety Guys. I am James, and in a moment here, we'll be joined by Michael, Paul, and our guest for this evening. We're going to be talking about a lot of topics fire prevention related, and we've got some great information. It's going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us. And as always, if you are watching this live on Facebook, go ahead and accept the permission for StreamYard so that we can actually see your comments pop up because then StreamYard brings comments over from Facebook. So if you have any comments or questions during the broadcast this evening, we're happy to take a look at those. And if we have time, we'll actually pass those along. We have a pretty full evening or full hour planned of content and topics. But just want to give a shout out real quick for StreamYard. We appreciate them sponsoring and supporting us. And if you have any questions or need more information about us or what we do, you can visit our website, which is churchsafetyguys.com. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Paul and Michael in here. And real quick, just to kind of let you guys know, we're actually in the process of updating the website, and we're kind of excited about that. But that should be probably within the next week or two. We're hoping to have that rolled out where we'll actually have a little bit of an advertising platform to support the Church Safety Guys ministry. And so it's pretty cool. It'll actually have an advertising platform, and then it'll also have a platform for individuals to list events and that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, or you're interested in partnering with us with putting your company or training business or that sort of thing on there, please feel free to reach out to Paul or I, and we can definitely help you. I don't know. Okay. Michael just disappeared on me, so I don't know where he went.
I was wondering.
Hey, Joe. So if you're watching this tonight, or if you watch it at a later time, please feel free to list what area you're from and your church name. That kind of helps us with the Facebook algorithm and kind of tells us who's watching through analysis and all that fun stuff. So anything you want to add real quick, Paul?
There's a lot of really exciting things coming down the pipe, and I was sharing with the guys something that's secret squirrel secret. I can't share with you guys yet what it is, but in March I'm doing something called War Ready, WAR, War Ready, and it's something that I'm just going to tease about here and then not talk about anymore.
Okay, fair enough. So a couple of things real quick, real exciting things. If you guys haven't heard, March 8th or March 9th, actually, rather, is the third annual Northeast Wisconsin House of Worship conference, and I will be there. I'm going to be, I think March 8th, I'm going to be trying to broadcast live from that conference center, and I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of there's a lot of great conversations and speakers. It's a 2-day speaker. I know that Jason Weber is in the group, and he's the individual that's sponsoring it and kind of setting it up in conjunction with the technical college up there. And let me just say that if you're thinking that you want to go, you don't want to hesitate on buying the tickets, because I know they changed the venue from last year, but last time I talked to Jason, they were almost sold out. So, which is awesome. It's fantastic. So, if you're interested, if you're within the Green Bay, Wisconsin area, and you're interested in going up there and jumping into that conference, we'll post some information on that, so you can sign in and get your tickets. So let me bring Michael in here. Hey, Michael, welcome back from the Caribbean. Woohoo!
I know, it was great. Happy to be home, but I would like to go back. It's going to be easy to turn back around.
I decided that when I retire, I'm moving to Puerto Rico. And I just need to convince my wife and my kids to be okay with that, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Larry in. Larry was gracious enough to join us this evening.
Good evening.
And let me pull that. So, Larry,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your background, sir.
Well, I'm second generation firefighter. Dad spent 27 years in. I spent 24. I've been retired now for 5 years. I'm EMT, a firefighter, fire investigator, Seaburn instructor for DHS. I still teach at our local community college, have been for the last 12 years in the fire science. So we teach everything from building construction, fire prevention, fire protection systems. I do mostly hazmat and your fire 1 and 2 students. That's my big teaching. Had 5 years on an ambulance, 5 years in ER. So yeah, basically in the ER, I was dealing with psychs and dealing with overdoses, alcoholism, different things like that, just trying to keep the people calmed down to where they could get the help. And very active in our church right now, which is Venture Church in Springfield, Missouri. We've got a lot of things going on there. Our safety and security team, our medical team. We have a little over 300 people attend on a regular Sunday. So that's basically where I'm at. And I'm happy to be here tonight.
So if something goes south at your church, you're like the go-to guy that everybody's like, hey, Larry, come help us with this.
Yeah, I also own a construction company, so I get to fix things whenever it falls apart too. So
Fun times.
So he can build you up or burn you down.
Yes, and tell you how I did it.
So wait a second. So if you were a fire investigator,
Yes,
then
I
that
am
means
not.
you could actually hide what you were.
I am not allowed to investigate my own fires. That is just the number one rule. Yeah.
Well, I do a lot of disaster stuff with the Red Cross, and so often in Columbus, we'll respond to, on average, about 2 house fires a day.
Yeah.
And so usually the Red Cross, like I'm a chaplain for the Red Cross, but I'll respond and kind of try and help the displaced family.
Right.
And so often I'm on the fire scene and I'll be talking to the battalion chief or the deputy and kind of working with them. And I think in Ohio we have 3 or 4 fire investigators.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of I think there's 2 in Columbus that usually investigate. And so I've gotten to know them pretty well. And I always appreciate them around because in Ohio, they actually carry a firearm.
Right.
So a lot of times after the fire, it's helpful because, when we're in a sketchy neighborhood, then they're still investigating, they're still interviewing. And at that point, then they can kind of stick around with us and listen to our story. And, then a lot of times, like I'll match it up with what they were told and see if there's any discrepancies.
Yeah.
So.
Now, we are fortunate in the state of Missouri to have, I believe we have 17 state fire marshals right now. Greene County, we have on the county sheriff's side, we actually have an arson investigator, and they are post-certified. I have chose not to become post-certified because I don't have to Mirandize them, and I can ask them anything I want to ask them. And those people that are watching the camera right up above me, they can come in and Mirandize them anytime they want. So
I've never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, sir. Well, you had a pretty lengthy list of things that you wanted to cover and talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of run through those topics, and we'll throw up smoke signals if we have any questions from the audience, or
okay.
Hopefully nothing will burn too much with those smoke signals.
Oh, Lord, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. The very first thing that any administration or security group should look at is the type of building that you're actually setting in. You have 5 different classes of buildings. Type 1 being the most non-combustible there ever was. Type 2, limited combustibility. Then you go on down to that to like a type 5, which is normal residence. You want to look at that for a couple of different reasons. For your weather situations, is it going to be strong enough to withstand a tornado? Because we are in Tornado Alley here in southern Missouri. Then you want to look at the fire spread. And if, say, we had a fire in the kitchen, well, the kitchen is behind our stage, and we actually have 2 cinder block walls in between it. So we would actually have time to get the parishioners out of the sanctuary, nice and calm. We have our ushers, our greeters, our security team, all in place to where we can move those people out if we have to. And always make for sure of your exit routes, wherever you're located, because our children's church is on the other end of our sanctuary. So we would, and they're on 2nd and 3rd floors. So we would actually have to figure out, well, we have figured out how to get them out of there safely if that fire cannot be contained. But it's just like any place else. Have your plan in place ahead of time. And that way you don't end up having to go, oh, what are we going to do now? And then do the little Chicken Little dance. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that we noticed was we had set up our fire evacuation points a long time ago, probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. And just this year, when I sat down and kind of revisited them to update them, that sort of thing, I noticed that we actually had people evacuating right across the path of where the incoming equipment would be coming.
Yep.
So I kind of said, wait a second, time out. Let's talk about this. How can we make this a little bit easier? But what are some of the things when you're talking about evacuating and meeting places? What are some of the things to consider when you're looking at like where to set up that evacuation point?
Well, you touched on a couple of them right there. Know where your hydrants are around your building, and know where your fire department connection is for the sprinkler systems if you have a sprinkler system. And know during in the fire service, we do what we call pre-incident survey, and that should be worked out with the fire department and your administration or person involved in that in your church. That way we can keep them away from the hydrants. We can keep them away from the main doors. We can tell the fire department, okay, section 3C is the part that's involved. This is your quickest, easiest entrance to gain access. And keep those people away from the entrances. Get them into another parking lot if you can. That way, and for heaven's sake, if you haven't looked at where your hydrants are located and where your parking is, you could actually be parking vehicles in front of those hydrants. And we need to keep them clear. Now, we're not going to do a ladder 49 and shove a hose through somebody's window.
Oh, come on.
No, that's where a $500,000 truck hooks a chain to it and drags it away. So,
all right, then.
Yeah. So, big tow trucks. Yeah. But, we've had incidents just in my time of fighting fire where we've actually had to move a vehicle with an apparatus. That's not advised because your chief will not like you whenever you have to go get that repaired. But, polished chrome bumpers and all that, they're expensive.
I've never met a chief that was actively happy with me driving any apparatus at all. I don't know if it was just because I had issues or...
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a firefighter EMT for about 10 years. So my thing really was more on the EMT side and rescue and that sort of thing. But I think this first or second time I was driving the ambulance, I accidentally backed into part of the wall in the fire station, and they weren't real happy with me.
Right. Well, here we have a little bit different situation than in other areas. Our fire service, to become a fireman around here, you have to have your Fire 1 and 2, your hazmat awareness and ops, and you have to be at least EMT.
Sure.
And then our ambulance services are actually ran by the hospitals. We have 2 hospitals here, Mercy and Cox, and they have their own ambulance services each. And so we're first line of defense as far as fire, and we assist those ambulance services to load the patient, and if they need an extra rider, then we go. But most of our protocols here are for EMT level. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So I know it's different.
Let's go back to, you mentioned earlier, we were talking offline about how quick a fire can spread and take over a building.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, your standard out in the country, you know, you have typically you'll have like a steel building for a church. You can have that, or a lot of times you can have a brick or cinder block, you know, foundation, that sort of thing. What would the speed on something like that be? I mean, I know you're supposed to take it serious, but when we're talking about like evacuation and stuff, what's a good timing to practice? Well,
in the newer style of churches that are being built, of course, it's just like anything else, build it faster, cheaper, lighter, and stronger. And so you're dealing with metal studs normally. Some do have the more open feel with the iron framework. If you have a fire in the sanctuary itself, chances are good there's not going to be a lot of fuel there to keep the fire going. So a standard ABC extinguisher can pretty much knock it out. And it's not the fire that kills a lot of these people, it's the smoke inhalation. So you've got to make for sure that these people have fresh air that they can get into as quickly as possible. If we have something back in the kitchen, that fire will grow faster because you have a smaller room.
Okay.
And by the time somebody realizes that it's actually on fire, and then go send someone back to check it, try to put it out with an extinguisher if you can. If not, then you've got to dial 911. You've already wasted 2 to 3 minutes on that fire. And every minute that fire has a chance, if it has the fuel, it will double in size almost every minute.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And by the time you realize it, you call 911. They have another dispatcher sitting over here, typing everything in, sending everybody out. In the fire service, we had a minute during the day and 2 minutes at night to actually get on that apparatus and go. In the rural setting, you're lucky if by the time the tones went off, you might make it there in 8 to 10 minutes if it was right close to the station.
Right.
Springfield has a 5-minute call length, and we have all kinds of mutual aid and all that for the outlying areas. In 8 minutes, that fire can fully involve that room into flashover stage, which is over 1100 degrees. That is a non-viable area. 8 minutes. And you haven't even thought about it even getting there yet.
Sure.
So the faster you can get those people out, the better off you are.
So with that, with the firewall, like our church actually has a drop-down firewall barrier because we've added on to it so many times.
Yeah.
How does that play into it for churches that have that?
Yeah, your firewalls, if you have it in a commercial setting, like a strip mall, I know some of our churches here are actually in strip malls.
Oh yeah.
And we have the metal studs, double 5/8 offset seams, fire rated sheetrock. That's supposed to give you 30 minutes. I'm here to tell you, it won't give you 30 minutes. It won't do it. A 45-minute fire rated door won't give you 45 minutes, but it will give you an opportunity to try to get out. Anytime you're evacuating, make for sure you close the door behind the last person. Do not give that fire any more oxygen than what it actually can. Mm-hmm. Oxygen will not burn, but it rapidly aids in the spread of fire. And you don't want to end up having a situation of a backdraft, which is oxygen excluded, superheated room. Just leave it alone. Get out as fast as you can.
I'm going to ask you one quick question, and then I'll pass it over to Paul because he wants to ask you something. But so you mentioned most fires could probably be knocked down with like an ABC extinguisher.
Yes.
If I walk up to a fire and it looks like, what size in my mind would I say, okay, I could probably get this, or I need to call 911? Like distance, I guess like 3 feet, 4 feet.
Boy, you're asking a loaded question right there. You want to look at the size of your room and make for sure that because they're on an ABC, each your Class A fires, which is what you'll normally have there, or Class B, which is flammable combustibles, you will have a different rating on each size or each type of fire. And now they've actually taken I keep talking about kitchens because kitchen fires are huge.
Sure.
And those, they have actually taken out of Class B and created their own class, which is Class K fires. And each one of them have a different value to how much extinguisher you need to put out how big of a square foot area fire, or how much fuel. A Class A is how much fuel. Class B and Class K are how much square footage you actually have of that liquid.
Sorry, getting a little feedback here. I'm trying to adjust. There we go. Okay. You had a question?
I actually had a comment and question. When I took my CERT training, they talked about the fact of a buddy system. Like Michael would have my shoulder, I would spray, and if the fire extinguisher is not working or it did not do the job, get the heck out of Dodge because of things could hit me or I could succumb. And it's amazing how focused you can get past focus and freaked out over something. Your buddy might have to get you out of there. And then the comment I wanted to make that I thought was really interesting was you were talking back to, and I just went blank. You were talking about the size of the fire. And then before that, you were talking about, I just mentioned the buddy system. I should have written that down. That's what happens when you're ADD. Bear with me. And you were talking about the parking lot. You're talking about the building, talking about evacuating people. Yes. In my neck of the woods, we have 100% volunteer fire departments.
Yep.
And so I apologize about losing where I was at. And I experienced a fire on my property that I was burning a little bitty tiny fire. I was burning it down a ravine against just a little bit of wind, and out of the blue, nothing that was forecasted. The wind shifted the opposite direction and was running. Hard enough to move your clothing, and it blew it across the property line onto my neighbor's property, and was still headed towards the giant propane tank. Only time in 16 years of living there I've ever had a fire get away from me. And my neighbor and I put it out before the fire department got there. Our response was a brush truck with a broken generator that was supposed to pump. It gets better. That was supposed to pump the water. 45-minute response time. So yeah, it was less than useless. The guy was very nice. He was very friendly. Told us we did a very good job of effecting our own rescue. But he literally responded from about 3 towns over because they kept putting out a call saying, we have a fire, it's jump fence. And I know that, and I want you to talk about this, Larry, in some areas that don't have a good municipal paid fire department, churches, I think, need to be aware of just how far out a fire department response could be.
Yes. Now, we have been very fortunate. About 11, 12 years ago, Springfield itself is a municipality of about 250,000 without the college kids. We have, it grows about 100,000 easily just with them. We have 12 stations. We run Kelly shifts with about 240 firefighters divided up. Yeah, so we're running about 80 firefighters a day in those 12 stations for the city of Springfield itself. Now, about 12 years ago, you would not have heard of any of the outlying areas actually having a paid department. They were all volunteer. So trying to find help was just next to impossible. Now, at that time, these small municipalities around that might have 1,000, 2,500 people in them passed their taxes and started getting career firefighters in there. You know, the only difference between a career firefighter and a volunteer firefighter is the paycheck. They have to have the same certifications to continue in and fight those fires. It's just some people do it for free, and I have. You know, I spent several years just volunteering. And since we've had all these different tax passes, more and more of our towns around here have a combination department, part volunteer. So at least we've got quick response for the ones that are at the station. And we're very fortunate to have that here. Where I know, like in Dallas County, I was chief. I didn't have any paid firefighters. I had to wait on somebody to show up because we always, in the fire service, we have 2 in, 2 out. So I might be able to get an apparatus there, but I had nobody to go in and I had nobody to back us up until everybody else showed up. And it was tough. It really was. But the volunteer side of it, I still teach it, and over 3/4 of my students are volunteers looking to get a career job.
I want to make a comment on that, Larry, because for all of you guys watching at home, think about the fact that if you don't do a good clean sweep of your building and somebody might be trapped inside, and what he said in your rural environment just happens, and a truck rolls up and one guy gets off, they're not sweeping the building for people. So think about that. Make sure grandma got out, and I'm not being funny. Make sure anybody that's got an impairment, that they don't have good mobility, they might have a mental problem. Make sure if they're little, and that's where your safety team. And I want to throw it back to you, Larry, and James. You got expertise in this too. That's where your safety team needs to have a plan to go. Roll call. We need a head count, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's good to know your building. And good to know who's responsible for what parts of that building. And if you say, I'm gonna sweep second floor, I know how many, by the time I talk to the teachers that are there for that Sunday school, how many do you have in here? We're ready to go. Now, we use a tag system for all of our kids. So they should be able to look at their sheet and tell us exactly how many they had. And if anybody went home sick or took out early or anything like that, let's do that head count, get them out. Yeah.
We just practiced our fire drill here about a month ago, and that was one of the things that we came up with, that the safety team member is actually the last person leaving that area that they're stationed in.
Yep.
And so their responsibility is to go back through, make sure the doors are closed, make sure closets and everything are evacuated. That, you know, we have one child that gets paranoid to the point of not being able to move when the fire alarm goes off. And it's just an audio sensory thing that he just can't handle it. So he'll shrink down and like literally go run in the corner.
Yes.
And so, you know, that was for us, that was kind of an eye opener to say, look, if you have anybody with special needs or any kids that have special needs or adults that have special needs, you know, when the fire alarm goes off, half of our building is a strobe and a nice alarm. And the other half is like an old Claxton out of a submarine that, I mean, a submarine actually sounds better because I've been in a submarine.
Yeah. what I did want to mention about the fire alarms, a lot of our sanctuaries use theatrical smoke along with the lighting. Now, that theatrical smoke does not play well with fire alarm systems.
Sure.
I've had because I also have a DJ company, sorry. I'm not allowed to use my theatrical smoke in a lot of these places because, lo and behold, it'll set those systems off. So you need to make for sure as a security team that with that theatrical smoke, do they actually have that part of the alarm muted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because it will happen.
Often we use it. We do an Easter presentation where it's like kind of like a pageant or play. And so usually the resurrection scene that we do, we have a lot of that. And so often what we'll do is we'll put someone on fire watch and then put the alarm system in test mode while we get through it until we can kind of judge and figure out how much, how much it impacts and how much, because we have fans in the sanctuary that kind of blow and can dissipate that. But one of the interesting things is that's pushed us to actually do research. And, when the fire alarm's going off, you've got well-meaning church members that are like running up, hitting every button, trying to silence and shut stuff up. And I'm like, no, don't do that. So we have at our church, we have a Honeywell notifier. And so I printed off the 400-page binder PDF of that, and I gave it to all my safety team leaders. And I said, okay, there's going to be a quiz in the morning. You're a firefighter now. No, I didn't say that. We have a copy in the office, but I did go back through and I actually said, hey, this is what you push. This is how you handle it. Read the system that pops up. Be the calm in the storm. When everybody's evacuating, when everybody's running out, this computer screen right here will tell you what's going on. If it's up in the ceiling, if it's a pull box that somebody pulled, and then you can research it, go to it, and then figure out what's going on.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because when the fire department does get there, they're going to post one of their firefighters with a radio on that box. So that's one of the first things as a security team, we need to tell them where this box is, just in case they haven't looked at the pre-incident survey. Mm-hmm. And set somebody there, then they'll send teams in from there. The fire department is not allowed to reset a sprinkler or reset an alarm system. They're only allowed to manage it, and then the alarm company itself has to come over and reset it. Or the sprinkler service.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Hey, Larry, quick question. With your experience, have you noticed any difference using hazers versus cloggers? I know the hazers have a smaller particulate, and they say they don't set them off, but I know that came up in topics a few weeks ago.
Yeah, hazers are supposed to actually keep it lower to the ground. A lot of times, whenever you use a hazer, you'll also shoot it across dry ice, which keeps it low. And fog machine, it'll set it off every time. But the hazers, as long as you're using dry ice, it'll actually float across the stage, and it won't go up into the air near as fast.
Right. Okay.
I know, Larry, when you and I talked in Springfield, for those of you guys who don't know, I actually met him at a class in Springfield and found out about his background. I was like, we've got to have you on the show. But you and I talked about, what happens at 2:00 in the morning when the church catches on fire. And you mentioned that someone from the church that knows where everything is, like somebody from facilities, needs to be there. And I know you have a certain group of things you want to talk about. I don't want to get away from that, but I would like to hear more about that.
Okay. In our area, every commercial building is supposed to have what they call a Knox box. And that Knox box is a keyed box that only that fire protection district has a key to. Inside that box is supposed to be the key to open up the building. So we don't end up having to, on a false call, just rip your whole doggone sanctuary down and say, oh, by the way, we had to get in and we couldn't. So yeah, those boxes, the owner of the building actually purchases those, places them at a specified area, and makes for sure that they actually have the key that opens the door in there. Yeah, we had a school like that, brand new school, put in this $400 Knox box, never put a key to the front door in it. And so we had to take out one of their front glasses, and then they put a key in. Yeah.
Sorry, it was a false alarm.
Yeah, can't help it. We had to gain access.
And you mentioned something, Larry, that I loved was that key needs to have a key that is either a master key or something that goes to every door in the building, because if you have to boot every door in the building, that's a lot of doors and locks and jams to replace. And I had never thought of that.
Yeah. And, you know, people always are worried about putting that key in that Knox box. Knox Corporation, they actually will back any vandalism to that box. They will take care, they have insurance to take care of anybody that actually breaks into that box instead of opening it with a key and steals however much and vandalizes however much. Knox Corporation will actually back that.
That's cool. I didn't know that. So that I could see some people asking that very easily.
Yeah. And we actually have now in the city of Springfield, it is required on all your annual inspections that on our fire department connections, which are normally 2.5 inch lines going to your sprinkler system, they actually make a Knox lock for those also. To where people cannot vandalize it, to where the fire department cannot push water through to the sprinkler system. Yeah. So they have made that part of our code here.
Nice.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Well, is there anything else you wanted to cover on your list, sir?
Oh, I've got plenty of stuff on here. Let's see. One thing, if we're finding out that we're not able to get everybody out in time, say it's an explosion of a boiler or something like that, and there are some people that have either minimal or maximum tragedy, we need to set up a triage system. That way we can start telling 911, how many ambulances are we going to need? This is the intensity that we're having to deal with. And, you know, are they a level 1? Are they a level 2? Are they a level 3? Or are they deceased? Now, in the fire service, we risk a lot to save a lot, but we risk a little to save a little. If they're already deceased, we do not pull them out. Let the investigator handle that.
Sure.
But, you know, if they're the walking wounded, you know, I've always taught my students how to use hand signals instead of yelling at the people, because they may still have ringing in their ears and they can't hear you. So make big hand gestures. You know, I know it looks funny, but that's what you've got to do. And we have medical personnel there. And if we've cleared it all and I'm freed up, I'll go work with medical. Since I am still a licensed EMT. But we have nurses, we have CNAs, LPNs. We don't have any doctors per se that come on a regular basis, so they're not on our team. But we'll take anybody that we know has a certification and use them, because they can wrap a bandage around an arm. They can dry dress. But they may not be able to intubate, or start IVs, you know. But we don't carry any of the paramedic equipment at our church. We have an AED, first aid kits everywhere, and above each and every one of those first aid kits is the actual address of the building. Now, people don't really think about that too much. I go to Venture Church. Well, where's that at? Well, we're over here on Elfindale, I think. Yeah.
I'm laughing, but that's actually something that Paul and I talked about last week because we had a session on dispatching and dispatchers. And that was one of the biggest things. I can't tell you how many times I've either had someone hand me the phone and say, hey, you know where we are, call 911.
Yeah.
Or, I've been in the middle of trying to give our church address. And of course, I'm there often, but my mind goes blank when they're like, okay, where are you?
Yes. Yes.
So it's a little bit less like Hollywood with we'll ping your phone in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
But
hey, I want to throw something out on that. I think I've told James and Paul this before, something I do, and it may be helpful for others too. I actually save 911 in my phone and my cell phone as a place, and under the address of 911, I put the address to the church.
There you go.
So that when you're in that kind of catch, you can just look at your phone and say, hey, that's where I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just a little trick.
Yeah. With calling 911, I don't know if you guys are aware, but our highway patrol in Missouri is star 55, and you can call star 55 or 911. When you call from that phone, it locks that phone. Dispatch actually locks that phone. So you can't just say, hey, I got to go now. I got to call somebody. And no, you can't. Not until they release it. And I don't care whether that phone has service or not. Say AT&T, T-Mobile, any of the ones, Verizon. Even if it doesn't have a subscription on it or a service, it will still call 911 or star 55. And that's why all the big companies were taking your old trade-in phones, and they would hand them out to the people such as the transient population. They can still get emergency help even though they don't own a phone. As long as it's got battery on it, they can still call.
Cool. I want to go back and look at, we had one question here from the audience. Actually, Simon asked, as far as some of the fire concepts and that sort of thing that you're talking about, do you have a list of recommended reading or maybe websites that somebody could reference to learn more and kind of self-teach on that?
I can try to pull some up. I'm actually going off of the IFSTA, International Fire Service Training Association. That is the textbooks that we actually teach from. And IFSTA has a plethora of information that you should be able to pull without purchasing a textbook.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're cool. Very, very good knowledge. Your state division of fire should also have information on this, because I'm in talking to State Division of Fire all the time, and they're 2.5 hours away.
Sure.
But they'll always send us any of that stuff. And check with your local municipality too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was kind of my last question, and then I guess we'll have to wrap it up for this session. But what's the best way to engage with your local municipal services? Like, how do you? I'm going to go out on a limb here from past experience, but bringing like food isn't a bad thing,
right?
Because often I can tell you where my church is actually unincorporated Columbus. So we have Columbus fire respond, but often mutual aid will have one of the two local townships respond instead. And so we try to keep a good relationship with everybody, right? We never know who's going to end up pulling up when something happens. But what's the best way to kind of work on that relationship?
I will say my cell phone right here, my wife gets mad at me all the time because I won't erase nobody's number. I've been a emergency manager and a firefighter so long. I network. I network. I don't care if it's somebody all the way across the county or Troop D area here has 18 counties in it. And that is also called Region D for the FEMA directory. I go and I talk to these people. I try to learn from them every chance I get. It's always a good idea to surround yourself with people that have more knowledge than you do. Because I guarantee you, the day you quit learning is going to be the day you die. That's the way it should be. Yeah. And so take notice from these people. Say, I want to be a sponge and I want to come in and learn from you, because the ideas I may have may not work in your area, but they work great for our area. And, just get out and start talking to some of these officials. Talk to the regular firefighters, the regular patrolmen. Talk to your EMS personnel. We have them staged all over town. And, they're at our local gas stations, and we just stop in and say hi. Food is always a good thing. I've never known a small firefighter or I haven't known too many small EMS either. But the cops, they got the donut rings, the magical power rings. They do pretty good with it. But yeah, start talking to people. Because I have actually, in the volunteer time, back in the 90s, my dad had a barn that caught on fire from lightning, and the local volunteer fire department and the neighboring volunteer fire department, ended up making it there first, and they got into a fist fight over whose call it was.
Yep.
And that was in the 90s. And that was very common.
I swear you must have lived in my county, because that happened a long time ago. Straight up.
Yep.
I was just going to say the same thing, Paul, because when I served, it was in the 90s, and I can remember I started getting out of it about the time that the town, because it was volunteer, but the town started compensating and paying an hourly amount, which was basically just enough to pay for gas, right. To get there. But I can remember standing on scenes of first and second alarm fires where the chiefs had to separate two captains because they were fighting over which direction a line should run. And most of the time when I went to them, I had turnout gear, but most of the time I used it for rescue, like if I used the Jaws or something like that at an accident. But most of the time when I went, it was to stand by, as a medic with the ambulance and that sort of thing. But yeah, I can remember over time a couple of fights that I'm like, well, I went to the fight and a fire broke out.
Yeah. Well, and we've had that issue with we have Interstate 44 that runs just on the north side of our area. I have been handcuffed by a state trooper. I have known other fire chiefs that have been handcuffed by state troopers, because state troopers' job is to keep that highway open. Our job is to make for sure our firefighters are safe while we're taking care of the accident or the car fire or whatever. And we used to go toe to toe, and the cops usually put the chief in the car with handcuffs. And yeah, it didn't always work out for him either.
That's crazy.
Oh, it is. But times they have changed. My dad started firefighting in 1970 with 3/4 boots, 3/4 coat, no such thing as a Nomex, fire gloves, and a leather helmet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You wore an SCBA. You was one of the weakest people there was even on site. Now, no, you have full pants, full coat, Nomex, a nice ballistic style helmet, and everything is for a reason. You wear an SCBA even if you're going on a car fire.
Yeah. Well, and we were kind of talking offline for those that are just joining us, but we were talking before about the different chemical composition of stuff now, like in cars and houses and different things like that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's gone are the days of emergency and the 1970s response to
Yeah.
I'll just throw a coat on and run into this fire.
Well, and I'll bring up 9/11 here because yes, we lost 343 firefighters. We lost a whole lot of other people besides that, but that's just one statistic that I'm aware of. And we still are losing firefighter, PD, EMS from 9/11.
Yeah.
It's still happening due to the cancers. The carcinogens, the asbestos that came down with those buildings. We're still to this day losing emergency services personnel. And I don't know about y'all's area, but I know here we do a stair climb every year, and it's a great memorial to those fallen heroes that were there.
You were talking about safety, and I want to go back to that because not losing people, and you and I had a little bit of this conversation in Springfield. If your church is like our church, it's been added onto many times, and sometimes there's more than one electric meter. And yes. I actually know a guy that I dated his daughter. He actually quit his volunteer fire department because they were sent up on a roof to spray and they were getting shot. And the guy called them a bunch of little girls and said, "Yeah, right." And he's like, the guy's like, "No, we cut the power." And he's like, "No, we're getting shocked." And so this other volunteer fire department in mass quit and left. And they found out later that the building had 2 meter loops. And the church that I was at for 25 years, not only did they have 2 entirely separate meter loops, but I was working on a project and I was checking and I still had power and I couldn't figure out why. And I traced the wire and some goober ran a hot wire from the new addition clear across the church. It's like 200 foot of Romex into an area and dropped the light. And so from a fire safety standpoint, having someone on scene who knows where all your power goes to.
Right. And we're fortunate here. City Utilities runs all of our gas, electric, water, sewer. They are the mutual aid package that we have in this area. City Utilities is dispatched out at the same time police, fire, and EMS are. That's so wonderful. They can get there and start cutting lines because they know the dangers. I know our church has 3 different 3-phase systems coming into the church. 480 volt. And you put water on that, you're in trouble. You will not make it home.
You're gonna be
it's one of those things that we really want to go home at the end of our shift.
Amen.
We don't want to become a statistic.
Amen.
And I just went to a fellow firefighter's funeral the other day. About a week and a half ago now. And if you've never been to one of those, you don't want to count past one hand how many of those you've been to in your lifetime. It will bring a sombering reminder of why there's not that many of us that actually do this. It's a calling. It really is. Same as cops, same as EMS. All emergency services, it's dangerous out there. I know one of our EMS departments now, they're wearing ballistic vests on everything. And it's just the time we live in. And so with them wearing ballistic vests, we have several officers that are on our security team. They still wear a ballistic vest. And some of the fire departments are now going to ballistic vests. I know the department that I finished out my career in, they had us with them. And then the big thing in Ferguson, Missouri, we actually sent some of our vests up to Ferguson because they didn't have enough ballistic vests to take care of everybody.
And I know that, James, you've worn a vest. And if you've never worn a ballistic vest, they're hot, they're heavy, you sweat in them. Now imagine being in rollout gear and it's already hot and you're sweating and you got all this heat rolling towards you. So staying hydrated is huge. These people are taking an enormous risk for us, and they're concerned somebody's going to try to shoot them.
Right.
That's pretty pathetic.
Yeah. On another department I was on, we actually had an area that it was basically a meth subdivision, and they were trying to burn each other out. Well, yeah, I know. It was crazy. And the first time that we went in there to the first house fire, we actually took shots into the truck and filled those holes. And then the next week, lo and behold, we ended up having an officer in front of us, an officer behind us, and the captain's seat had a shotgun in it. And that's no way to go. And sure, there's a reason Line PD doesn't come around here anymore. Yeah.
That's funny because they used to be in Columbus and they stopped doing that too.
Point in case. Yeah, but we get a lot of drugs running through here. Nationwide, it's known as 417, which is our area code. And they run Mexican drugs up through here on I-44. And we've got MoDOT, Highway Patrol that run that area and find a lot of it. They don't find it all, but they find a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm sure at each one of your churches, you've got people that randomly stop by that are either coming down or looking for their next fix, and they're looking for a handout. We want to help those people, but we want to help them in a way that's going to be beneficial for them.
Amen.
Yeah. We don't want to turn them away. We want to make for sure that they're getting some personal or godly benefit out of the help that we give them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've heard too many people that say, oh, no, we don't give handouts. We don't do this. We don't do that. We'll talk to them, but we're not going to give them anything. And, we normally don't do cash. We'll give them food vouchers and stuff like that, but no cash.
Yeah, we've kind of gone down the same road of actually having a plan and conversation about that. So very often we'll do a gift card or we'll go pay for a prescription or something like that. But yeah, we don't hand out cash anymore either, because we used to always carry a spare gas can in the garage, and if somebody ran out of gas, then we'd fill it up for them and help them out. And then I think one summer we ended up having like 5 or 6 cars randomly run out of gas in our parking lot.
Yeah.
And we went through a period of time then when some of the deacons in the church would ride with the person in their vehicle to go get gas.
Yes.
And we kind of put a stop to that too and said, you know what, just don't do it.
Yeah. And, we've actually, at the last church I was at, we had cameras up. Our security team there had met this U-Haul in the parking lot. They were trying to make it another 45 minutes down the road and needed gas. Mm-hmm. Well, we got to talking to him, and one of our parishioners there also worked for U-Haul. He was checking on his phone to see where it was rented out of. Come to find out it had been stolen for the last 7 months. Every tool in the back was stolen.
Oh, wow.
And our pastor actually took him down to the gas station and put $20 in it. They just barely made it outside of the city limits of Springfield. And I don't know how they got pulled over. I don't know. But that's the type of, you get those feelings. And
Sure.
And act on those gut instincts every chance you get, because you may not get a second chance. But yeah, be vigilant.
Sure. All right. Well, wrapping up. If you guys have any other quick questions, you're welcome to go for it, Paul.
I do. I really do, because this has been something I've thought about for years. I'm a worst case scenario guy, and you and I talked about this, Larry, a little bit beforehand. Because there's a lot of Hollywood that surrounds car fires.
Yes.
And I had an enlightening experience about a car fire next to a house, And I wanted you to talk about, you pull up to the scene and let's say a vehicle has caught on fire in a packed parking lot. What should we know? What should we do? And what should we expect?
Okay, first thing, don't find the local guy with a 1 ton and a chain and try to pull it out of that parking lot. You're going to figure out how many cars if it's in a packed parking lot, figure out how many cars you're willing to lose and start from there and work your way in. Chances are real good. If one's on fire, you're going to lose at least 3.
Wow.
Yeah. Same with house fires. With radiant heat, the way these cars are made with the aluminum, the boron, we talked about the magnesium.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is going to create that radiant heat, and it's probably going to start melting the cars next to it. So you want to start on both sides. Never approach a vehicle from the front or the back, because those gas-charged shocks that are for your bumpers, heated up, they will push that bumper and take your knees out. Oh, wow. So don't get close to them. You're going to hear some popping. It's going to be normally the tires. I have yet to see a gas tank explode. I have yet. It'll increase the fire load, but I have yet to see one explode in all my time. In fact, if you look back at the old metal fuel tanks, the old welders would fill it full and weld them, but they would not fill it. They would not leave it partially full and weld it, because you had all that gaseous area there. That's what catches fire before the actual liquid does. So, just be careful of that. Be cognizant of it. If you get an opportunity, especially in today's hybrids, all electrics, I don't know how many of you guys have an actual key that goes to your vehicle anymore. They're all proximity keys. Take that key and throw it. Remember where you threw it, but get it at least 25 feet away from that car. That way it cannot, like an electric vehicle, you can't hear when they're still running. And if you're close with that proximity key, and it's still in gear, or it pops into gear, it can run over somebody, or that vehicle on fire can actually take off across your parking lot.
Wow.
Throw that proximity key at least 25 feet away.
I got to stop you. That right there, I got to do this. What he just said, wherever he's at right now, was worth the entire conversation. Everybody, thank you. Guys, if you're listening to this, what he just said, how many of you guys have proximity keys? And think about the fact that your vehicle could be running, and think about the fact that it could actually take off on you.
Yes.
That was worth the whole conversation right there.
Well, now, we always have to make for sure we know where we threw it, because the tow truck driver is going to want it and all that. But just throw it at least 25 feet away. Most of those keys will work within 25 feet. So just remember the direction you threw it. And don't throw it in the river.
That is really crazy. I did not know that. Of course, I think the first time I got into a car with a proximity key, it took me like 20 minutes to try and figure out why the car wasn't starting and where it was going.
Yes.
So, but
I learned that lesson with my wife. 100 degrees outside in the middle of summer, and I'm driving my father-in-law's Jeep Cherokee. He's got a proximity key. My vehicles don't. They all have just a regular key. And I walk into the pharmacy, and she's calling me up, "Hey, get closer to the vehicle. You're shutting it off." Because I still had it in my pocket.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's too much. Michael, did you have any other questions, sir?
No, I don't.
Well, you've been nice and quiet tonight, Michael.
I'm tired from my trip, I'll be honest with you. I drove 6.5 hours, literally about an hour before this broadcast, so I'm spent.
Well, glad you made it back safely.
Thank you.
Fun times. Paul, did you have any other questions, sir?
No, I think it's some later date, and I'd love to have people comment when they watch this later. I think we need to bring Larry back on and have another conversation, because honestly, guys, we're going to have conversations with folks that are not a one and done. I'm not done. I'm ready to pop some popcorn and kick back, and I'm ready for midnight oil. So if I feel this way, I have a sneaking suspicion other people do. So Larry, we're gonna have to have you back on at some point, brother.
Be more than happy to be back on.
Thank you.
For sure. With your background and experience, one of the things that we didn't touch or anything was really what I mentioned earlier, the C. Bernie stuff.
Right.
Where I'm like, okay, so let's talk about suspicious packages and biohazard to the church and all this stuff.
Amen.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother hour. We can do that.
So what we'll have to do, we'll have to bring you back for sure if you don't mind joining us again sometime. We'll
be my pleasure.
Put a date on the calendar and figure something out. But I appreciate your time, sir. You've been awesome and a great sport with everything. So thank you for joining us. I don't know how. Well, I've heard the story how, but I don't know how you stayed patient with this guy over. Well, this guy, not this guy. That guy.
He's pointing at himself. That was awesome.
There. Oh, there we go.
So
up in the corner.
One of these days, I'll get to do a class with him, and then maybe I'll have that much more respect for those that hang out with him.
Well, it wasn't easy, but he was a great guinea pig that day. I love the instructor that he just used him for a lot of different shows.
He did.
And it worked out well.
A lot.
Yeah.
Fun times.
You bet.
All right, sir. Well, I will go ahead and close in prayer, and then we'll go ahead and end the broadcast, and we'll call it a night. So,
wonderful.
Gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather together. And I just ask, Lord, as we go our separate ways, that you would bless us, keep us safe, and just give us a good, refreshing week so we can come back together and serve you next Sunday. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Larry. Thanks for your time, Larry.
Thank you. All right.